Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, we stand at a time when the very foundation of our faith, the honor of our soul, and the prosperity of our nation must be called into question. It is a most solemn occasion, and it is with a heavy heart that I rise to address a matter that bears weight upon the conscience of every one of us, a matter that calls upon us to reckon with the truth. And what truth is that? It is the truth that the practice of tithing, as it has been upheld and embraced, is not a righteous duty, but in fact a grave error, a sin that drags us from the path of righteousness. We have, through many generations, been taught that giving a portion of our wealth to the church as a mandated obligation is a noble and holy act. But I say unto you today, with utmost sincerity and deep reverence for the teachings of the Almighty, that this practice leads us astray. The scriptures themselves, in their purity and wisdom, speak not of forced giving, but of giving from the heart, giving out of love, and giving freely without constraint. Yet, how many among us have been burdened by the heavy yoke of obligation as though our salvation could be bought through the mere exchange of coins? The very notion that our Creator, who is the source of all good things, would demand a specific portion of our wealth in a mechanical, legalistic fashion is contrary to the nature of His grace. For indeed, His hand has given to us all things freely and abundantly, the air we breathe, the ground beneath our feet, and the love of our families are not earned or feigned. And so, how can we presume that such a Creator would require a fixed measure of our wealth, as though He Himself needs our offerings to sustain His greatness? Let us not be deceived by the alluring promises of men who speak of tithing as a way to unlock the blessings of heaven. They speak of prosperity and divine favor as if they could be bought by the coin of the realm. But what is the worth of $1 in the eyes of the one who holds the stars in his hand? What does 1/10 of our income matter to the one who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills? To think that our Creator could be swayed by such a trivial thing is to insult the very nature of divine providence. Let us instead return to the true spirit of charity, one that is born of love, not of obligation. Let us give freely not because we are told that we must, but because our hearts are moved by compassion and kindness toward our fellow man. Let us remember that the true measure of our righteousness lies not in the amount of our gifts, but in the sincerity of our hearts and the selflessness of our actions. And so, my friends, let us reject this false practice of tithing, which only serves to deceive us into believing that we can buy favor with the Almighty. Let us instead live lives of generosity, kindness, and humility, ever mindful that our true treasure is not found in the wealth we accumulate, but in the love we give and receive. Let us be guided by the light of truth, for only in truth can we find the path to salvation and to a just and righteous world. The practice of tithing, which has been deeply ingrained in many faith traditions, is one that demands serious contemplation. To think that the act of giving a fixed portion of one's income can somehow secure divine favor is, at its core, a misunderstanding of what true devotion entails. It is important to acknowledge that the core issue lies not in generosity or support of religious institutions, but in the mistaken belief that tithing as a compulsory act is a righteous requirement. In truth, tithing, as it is often presented, may well be a misstep and error that causes believers to drift away from the essence of spiritual living and understanding. First, it is necessary to consider the deeper meaning of what it means to give in the eyes of the divine. It is widely taught that the Creator is not concerned with the material wealth we amass, for He, in His infinite wisdom and greatness, possesses all things. The earth and all that is within it are His. The notion that He, who is the Creator of the heavens and the earth, could desire or need a specific portion of our wealth is a misunderstanding of the very nature of His infinite generosity. He does not ask for the fruits of our labor because He requires them for His own sustenance, but because He desires that we grow in understanding and in the quality of our hearts. Our true offering to Him is not measured in gold or silver, but in the love we extend to our neighbors, in the kindness we show to those who are less fortunate, and in the humility we demonstrate before His presence. By framing tithing as a required act, the practice unintentionally turns our relationship with the Creator into one of transaction. It subtly implies that our devotion, our faith, and our moral standing can be gauged by the money we give. This distorts the understanding of faith and gives the false impression that God's favor can be bought. If tithing were truly about offering a portion of our wealth, then it would suggest that God's approval and grace can be manipulated by such exchanges. But This is clearly not the case. The scriptures themselves speak to the emptiness of offerings made out of a sense of obligation rather than genuine devotion. A heart that is forced to give is not one that pleases the Creator. Rather, it is a heart that seeks to fulfill a requirement rather than truly engage in the act of giving. Moreover, when we consider the manner in which tithing has been practiced, there is an unfortunate tendency to see it as a rigid duty, a specific percentage that must be met, rather than a free and joyous expression of generosity. It is easy to get caught up in the mechanical aspects of tithing, whether we have given exactly a tenth of our income or whether we are meeting expectations set by others. When the act of giving becomes about following rules, it loses its meaning. The true act of generosity is one that arises spontaneously in response to the needs of others or as an expression of gratitude for what has been given to us. In some instances, the concept of tithing has led to a detrimental effect, causing individuals to focus more on the percentage of their income than on the actual intention behind their giving. It is not the amount that matters to the Creator, but the spirit in which we give. When we treat tithing as an obligatory rule, we risk turning our faith into a checklist of actions rather than a living, breathing relationship with the divine. This shift in focus can blind us to the deeper purpose of generosity, to help others, to care for those in need, and to demonstrate the love that has been freely given to us. Finally, we must acknowledge that tithing, as it is practiced in many faith communities, can lead to a sense of guilt or inadequacy for those who struggle to meet the expected requirement. Many people living in difficult circumstances may feel that they are less worthy or less devout because they cannot fulfill the prescribed 10%. This burden is unnecessary and harmful, for it distorts the relationship between individuals and their faith. Faith is not a matter of meeting quotas or fulfilling external obligations. It is about the heart's orientation, the willingness to love, to serve, and to give, regardless of the amount, with a spirit of generosity. Therefore, when we say that tithing, as it is commonly understood, is a misguided practice, we mean that it detracts from the true nature of spiritual giving. It introduces an artificial standard, one that causes believers to focus more on numbers than on genuine compassion. It is not the Creator's will that we measure our devotion by the portion of our wealth, but by the purity of our hearts and the sincerity of our actions. We must turn away from this legalistic practice and embrace the true meaning of giving, one that is guided by love, freedom, and a desire to serve others without calculation or expectation. True generosity is not born from obligation, but from the heart. It is an expression of love, compassion, and the genuine desire to help others without expectation of return. When we speak of giving, it should not be seen as a transaction or a burdensome requirement, but as an opportunity to live out the values of kindness and grace that are central to many of our spiritual teachings. The act of tithing, when it is imposed as a mandatory requirement, distorts this essence of giving. It shifts the focus from a heart of love to the mechanics of fulfilling an obligation, and this is where the true spirit of generosity is lost. Generosity, in its purest form, arises naturally from within us. It is a response to the needs of those around us, a reflection of our shared humanity. To give freely without restraint is to offer something of ourselves, whether it be our time, our resources, or our kindness. When we give because we are moved by compassion, we are acting in harmony with the true spirit of generosity. There is no calculation, no expectation of anything in return, and no sense of duty compelling us to do so. It is simply an act of the heart. But when giving is reduced to a mandated percentage or a fixed amount, it ceases to be an act of free will. The sense of obligation undermines the very essence of generosity. People may give, but their hearts may not be in it. They may give because they feel they must, because they have been told it is required, or because they fear judgment if they do not. In such cases, the act of giving becomes less about the needs of others and more about fulfilling a rule. This, in turn, erodes the personal connection that should exist between the giver, the recipient, and the spirit of generosity itself. True generosity flows from the understanding that all we have is a gift, and that the joy of giving comes from sharing those gifts with others. When we give freely, we reflect the very nature of the divine, a nature that is infinitely giving, without expectation, without calculation, and without condition. The Creator does not give to us with strings attached, nor does He ask that we give in a particular prescribed way. What matters is not the amount, but the intention behind the gift. When we give with love, we mirror the boundless generosity of the divine. The act of tithing, however, imposes a restriction that shifts the focus away from the heart and places it on the rules. Rather than encouraging spontaneous acts of kindness, tithing demands a fixed response. This creates a false sense of security for those who fulfill the requirement, as though the mere act of giving a certain percentage somehow guarantees divine favor or righteousness. But the true measure of our worth is not found in the amount we give, but in the sincerity of our hearts and the selflessness of our actions. When we are free to give according to the needs we see and according to what our hearts prompt us to do, we begin to engage in the truest form of generosity. We may give a great deal or we may give a little, but the significance lies in the fact that we give willingly and without constraint. It is an expression of our values, of our love for others, and of our belief that the world is better when we care for each other. Moreover, the imposition of a fixed percentage, such as tithing, can lead to an unhealthy sense of comparison. People may begin to measure their worth based on how much they give relative to others, rather than on the intention and spirit of their giving. Some may feel pride or superiority if they give more, while others may feel shame or guilt if they cannot meet the prescribed requirement. This creates divisions among individuals where the act of giving no longer unites us in compassion, but rather fosters a sense of judgment and hierarchy. It can lead to an atmosphere where people give for the wrong reasons, seeking approval, recognition, or a sense of moral superiority rather than simply to help and to love. The truth is that when we give out of a sense of obligation, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to experience the joy that comes from giving freely. There is something deeply fulfilling in knowing that we have helped another person not because we had to, but because we wanted to. True generosity fills our hearts with a sense of purpose and connection to others, and this is where the real blessings lie. Generosity should not be measured by the amount given, but by the love with which it is given. It is not the external act that matters, but the internal spirit that drives it. When we give freely from a place of love, we create a ripple effect that spreads kindness and goodwill throughout our communities. We lift others up, not through our wealth, but through our compassion and the willingness to share what we have, whether that be material goods, time, or a kind word. In this way, the true spirit of giving lies in the freedom to choose when and how to give. It lies in the opportunity to give with joy, not because it is demanded of us, but because we recognize the beauty in sharing and in caring for others. True generosity comes from the heart, and it is this kind of giving that builds lasting connections and brings light to the world around us. The idea that God, the creator of all things, would require material wealth as a means of securing his favor is a misunderstanding of divine providence. It is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our offerings to God, be they in the form of money or material goods, are necessary to sustain his greatness. However, when we truly reflect on the nature of the Creator and the boundless generosity with which he provides for all of creation, it becomes evident that God does not need anything from us. The earth, the heavens, and everything within them belong to him already. The belief that he would demand a specific portion of our wealth as a prerequisite for blessings or favor reflects a narrow understanding of his providence, as if the divine were in need of what we have. God, in his infinite wisdom, is not dependent on the material wealth that we possess. He created the universe and everything in it, and everything that exists is a gift from him. It is a fundamental truth that the Creator does not require our wealth in any form, whether in tithes or any other manner of payment. In fact, the act of giving to God should not be seen as a way to fulfill some perceived debt or obligation, but as a way to show our gratitude for the abundance that he has already provided us. It is a response to his grace, not a transaction to procure further blessings. This notion of giving to God as a transaction distorts our relationship with the Creator. If we believe that God needs our offerings, we place ourselves in a position of misunderstanding his nature. The relationship between God and humankind is not one of equal exchange where our contributions earn us blessings, but one of love and grace where God has already given us everything freely. Our offerings, whether they be monetary or otherwise, are a reflection of our understanding of this grace and our willingness to live in alignment with his will. We offer what we can, not because it is required to win favor, but because we are moved by his generosity and seek to share that abundance with others. Furthermore, it is critical to recognize that God's provision is not limited to material wealth. While we may see wealth as a tangible measure of success or favor, God's true blessings are not confined to the material world. The blessings he bestows upon us, peace, love, wisdom, and compassion, are far more valuable than any amount of money. These spiritual gifts are what sustain us, guide us, and enrich our lives. In this sense, it is clear that God's providence is not measured by the wealth we accumulate or give, but by the depth of the spiritual gifts he imparts to us and how we use them to serve others. When we focus too much on material giving, we risk forgetting that God's provision is abundant and all-encompassing. The Creator provides for us not only through material means, but through the very breath of life, through the beauty of creation, through relationships, and through the moments of grace that touch our lives. To reduce God's providence to mere financial exchange is to miss the fullness of his generosity. It is a misunderstanding that places material wealth at the center of our spiritual life where it should not be. By insisting that God requires a specific portion of our wealth, we create a false sense of scarcity, as though there is not enough of his blessings to go around unless we give a certain amount. This mindset distorts our understanding of abundance. The truth is that there is no scarcity in God's provision. His blessings are infinite and unbounded, and they do not depend on our material wealth. To believe that tithing is necessary to unlock blessings is to misunderstand the very nature of abundance. God's blessings are already available to us in full measure, regardless of our financial status or our ability to meet a set percentage of giving. Additionally, the idea that material wealth is a primary measure of spiritual standing is a harmful one, as it leads to a misunderstanding of what constitutes a blessed life. It places undue emphasis on wealth as a sign of divine favor, which is a distortion of the truth. The most meaningful blessings are those that cannot be bought: peace of mind, a loving heart, a compassionate spirit, and the strength to endure hardship with grace. These are the true treasures that God bestows upon his children. They are not limited by wealth, nor can they be obtained through material offerings. To think that we can earn these spiritual gifts through financial giving is to miss the deeper understanding of what it means to be truly blessed.
We must also recognize that our relationship with God is not transactional in nature. It is a relationship based on love, trust, and faith. The Creator does not measure our worth by the size of our offerings, nor does he keep a tally of how much we give. What matters is the spirit in which we give and the way we live in accordance with his will. Our spiritual lives are not about the exchange of material goods for blessings, but about the transformation of our hearts and the way we serve others. True devotion is shown through acts of love, kindness, and humility, not by fulfilling a prescribed financial requirement. In light of these truths, it becomes clear that God does not require our wealth to sustain his greatness. His provision is already abundant and complete. Our offerings should be an expression of our gratitude, not a way to secure his favor. True blessings come from his grace, and no amount of material giving can ever match the depth of his love and care for us. The belief that tithing can unlock divine blessings or guarantee prosperity is one that should be carefully scrutinized. Over the centuries, a narrative has emerged in various faith communities that suggests financial contributions, specifically a tithe or a fixed percentage of income, are the key to receiving God's blessings. This belief has been perpetuated by some who claim that the act of tithing will lead to material wealth, divine favor, or spiritual advancement. However, this teaching creates a false and misleading understanding of the relationship between giving and divine blessing, ultimately undermining the true nature of faith and grace. First, it is important to understand the broader context of divine blessings. In many spiritual traditions, blessings are not solely or even primarily associated with material wealth or prosperity. The idea that the Creator measures success or favor through financial gain is a distortion of the more profound spiritual blessings that flow from a life of faith and devotion. Spiritual blessings such as peace, wisdom, love, joy, and the ability to serve others are far greater than the temporary comforts of material wealth. These blessings are not earned by fulfilling a prescribed percentage of income, nor are they something that can be purchased with money. When tithing is presented as a method for securing divine blessings, it turns the act of giving into a transactional exchange. This creates a dangerous misconception that God's favor can be bought or bargained for. It encourages people to give with the expectation of receiving something in return, whether that be financial success, personal advancement, or an unspoken guarantee of protection. But this understanding fails to capture the true nature of spiritual giving. Generosity, as taught by many religious traditions, should arise from a spirit of love and gratitude, not from a desire for material gain or divine reward. In fact, the true blessings that come from a life of faith often transcend material wealth. Those who live with a sincere commitment to spiritual principles may experience a deep sense of fulfillment, peace, and joy, qualities that cannot be quantified or measured by earthly possessions. These spiritual blessings are given freely, without the need for exchange. They come as a result of living in alignment with higher values, such as compassion, integrity, and love, and not because of a specific financial contribution. When we reduce the idea of divine blessing to a matter of material wealth, we miss the much deeper gifts that are available to us in abundance. Moreover, when the act of tithing is marketed as a way to unlock blessings, it distorts the concept of generosity itself. Instead of giving out of love, compassion, and a sense of duty toward others, the act becomes a calculated move to secure favor or receive material rewards. This shifts the focus from the intrinsic joy of giving to the extrinsic desire for a return. People may begin to give not because they want to support a cause, help others, or show gratitude for the blessings in their own lives, but because they have been led to believe that giving is the key to receiving. This transactional mindset taints the authenticity of charitable acts and undermines the true purpose of generosity. It is also worth considering the detrimental psychological impact that this mindset can have on individuals. When people are taught that their financial contributions are a means to gain blessings, they may feel a sense of guilt or anxiety if they are unable to give the required amount. This pressure can lead to feelings of inadequacy or spiritual failure, particularly for those who are struggling financially. Rather than feeling empowered to give what they can with love and joy, people may feel as though they are falling short of a standard that has been set by others, leading to unnecessary stress and spiritual disconnection. The emphasis on a fixed monetary requirement distorts the idea that everyone can contribute, regardless of financial means, and that all acts of generosity, no matter how small, are valuable in the eyes of the Creator. The idea that material wealth is the primary form of blessing also contributes to a dangerous narrative in which those who are financially prosperous are seen as more blessed than those who are not. This creates an unhealthy hierarchy within faith communities, where the rich are elevated as examples of divine favor, while the poor may feel overlooked or even condemned. It is crucial to understand that blessings are not limited to those who possess great wealth. In fact, many of the greatest spiritual leaders throughout history have lived humble lives, often without material abundance. Their blessings were not tied to their financial status, but to their spiritual depth, their compassion for others, and their ability to inspire change and growth in the world around them. Additionally, the expectation that tithing will lead to prosperity distorts the relationship between faith and material success. Faith is not about manipulating circumstances to secure personal gain, but about aligning ourselves with higher principles and trusting that we will be provided for in ways that serve our greater good. True faith involves surrendering the need for control over every outcome and trusting in the wisdom and timing of the Creator. When we tie our faith to the expectation of material reward, we risk losing sight of the more meaningful aspects of spiritual growth, such as inner peace, selflessness, and a deep connection with others. The promise that tithing will lead to material prosperity also overlooks the many factors that contribute to financial success, none of which can be reduced to a single action like giving a percentage of income. Hard work, education, opportunities, and many external factors all play a role in determining an individual's financial situation. While generosity is certainly a virtuous quality, it is not the sole determinant of wealth. To suggest that giving a set percentage will result in material wealth is to oversimplify the complexities of life and the ways in which we are supported by the Creator. In conclusion, the notion that tithing can unlock divine blessings or guarantee prosperity is a misunderstanding of both spiritual giving and divine favor. True blessings are not earned through financial contributions, but are the result of living in accordance with higher values and principles. When we give from a place of love, without expectation of material return, we engage in a far deeper and more meaningful act of generosity. And when we release the notion that material wealth is the measure of divine favor, we open ourselves up to a far richer understanding of the blessings that are available to us, blessings that cannot be bought or sold, but are freely given by the Creator. True generosity is not about the amount we give, but the spirit in which we give. When we speak of generosity, it is essential to understand that it flows from the heart, and the heart knows no boundaries or limits when it comes to kindness. Generosity is not something that can be quantified or measured in percentages. It is an expression of our willingness to give what we have, whether that is time, resources, love, or compassion. When we understand generosity in this way, we realize that every act of giving, no matter how small, is a reflection of the heart's capacity to care and to share with others. Generosity is often confused with the idea of financial giving, particularly when it comes to practices like tithing. People are often led to believe that true generosity means giving a certain portion of their income to religious or charitable causes. While financial contributions can indeed be a form of generosity, they are not the only or even the primary way we can be generous. True generosity encompasses so much more than money. It is the time we give to listen to a friend in need, the kind word we offer to a stranger, the helping hand we extend to someone facing hardship. These acts, though they may not have a tangible price tag, are no less valuable than a monetary donation. In fact, they often carry more weight because they come from a place of genuine care and a desire to make a difference in the lives of others. One of the most beautiful aspects of generosity is its spontaneity. True generosity arises naturally from a place of love and compassion. It is not something that is forced, expected, or bound by a set of rules. It is an organic expression of our connection to others and our desire to contribute to the well-being of the world around us. When we give without expectation, when we offer our resources or time freely, we create a ripple effect that can touch many lives. These acts of kindness may seem small in isolation, but their cumulative impact is profound. A single gesture of generosity can inspire others to act, creating a cycle of giving and compassion that spreads far beyond the initial act. Generosity also goes beyond material giving. In many ways, the most generous acts are those that do not involve money at all. A person who offers their time to volunteer at a local shelter, who gives their expertise to help someone in need, or who offers emotional support to a loved one is displaying a depth of generosity that is not tied to financial wealth. These acts often come at a cost, whether it be time, effort, or emotional energy, but they are no less valuable than a monetary donation. In fact, in many cases they are more significant because they demonstrate a willingness to give from a place of personal sacrifice, not just from an ability to part with material resources. It is essential to recognize that the quality of generosity is more important than the quantity. A person who gives a small portion of their resources with a full heart is far more generous than someone who gives a larger amount of motivation or expectation. True generosity is born from a desire to make a positive impact in the world, to ease the suffering of others, and to contribute to the greater good. It is about the intention behind the gift, not the size of the gift itself. In this way, generosity transcends the material realm and becomes a powerful tool for building connections, fostering understanding, and creating a more compassionate world. Moreover, generosity is not just about what we give, but also about how we give. When we give with a pure heart, we are not simply fulfilling an obligation or meeting a requirement. We are offering something of ourselves, our time, our energy, our love in a way that can change lives. The way we give is just as important as what we give. A gift given with love, care, and thoughtfulness is far more impactful than one given out of duty or expectation. When we approach generosity with a sense of joy and a willingness to share, we create an atmosphere of warmth and kindness that can transform not only the lives of those we help, but also our own lives. Generosity also teaches us the value of selflessness. In a world that often emphasizes individual success and material accumulation, true generosity reminds us that our lives are interconnected and that our well-being is linked to the well-being of others. When we give freely, without concern for what we might gain in return, we are practicing a form of humility. We are recognizing that we are not the center of the universe and that the resources, gifts, and talents we have are meant to be shared. This act of selflessness is a powerful antidote to the selfishness and greed that often pervade our society, and it helps to build a more empathetic, cooperative world. Furthermore, generosity has the power to heal. In a world that is often divided by conflict, misunderstanding, and hardship, acts of generosity have the potential to bridge divides and bring people together. A generous act, whether it is a financial contribution or a simple act of kindness, can create a sense of connection and community. It can remind us that, despite our differences, we are all human and that we all share the same fundamental needs for love, understanding, and support. In this way, generosity becomes a tool for reconciliation and healing, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. Finally, generosity is a reflection of our inner spiritual state. When we are generous, we are aligning ourselves with the values of compassion, kindness, and love that are central to many spiritual teachings. Generosity flows naturally from a heart that is at peace with itself and with others. It is a manifestation of our connection to the divine, and when we give from this place of inner peace, we are not only helping others, but also nurturing our own souls. Generosity is not just an outward act, it is an inward transformation that deepens our spiritual connection and helps us to live in harmony with the world around us. True generosity is not about the amount given or the recognition received. It is about the spirit in which we give and the love that motivates our actions. It is about offering what we can, when we can, with a heart full of compassion and a desire to make the world a better place. Every act of generosity, no matter how small, has the power to create positive change, and when we approach giving with an open heart, we are contributing to the greater good in ways that transcend material wealth. Generosity is the true currency of the soul, and it is through acts of selfless giving that we can build a better, more compassionate world for all. In conclusion, the concept of tithing as an obligatory financial duty undermines the true essence of generosity, spiritual giving, and divine blessings. Generosity is not a transaction or an obligation, it is a reflection of our hearts, a natural response to the abundance and love we have received. True blessings are not found in the material wealth we accumulate or the specific percentages we give, but in the sincerity, love, and compassion behind our actions. The Creator does not require us to measure our devotion by what we give materially, but by the spirit with which we offer our time, resources, and kindness. Generosity flows from a heart that understands the value of shared humanity, the interconnectedness of all beings, and the boundless grace that has already been bestowed upon us. When we understand generosity in its purest form, we begin to see that the most meaningful blessings are those that cannot be bought or earned, but are freely given by the Creator, just as He freely gives to us. In this way, we are reminded that true giving comes from a place of love, and that the heart's capacity to give is not measured by the size of our offering, but by the love and intention behind it. The act of generosity, whether small or large, has the power to transform lives, build communities, and bring us closer to the divine. It is through selfless acts of kindness that we reflect the true spirit of our faith and create a world of compassion, understanding, and peace. Let us strive to give with open hearts, not because it is required, but because it is the natural response to the infinite blessings we have already received. And in doing so, we shall find that the true gifts of life, joy, peace, and love are found, not in the wealth we possess, but in the generosity we share. May we all walk the path of true generosity, ever mindful of the love we have to offer and the blessings we already receive.